And Israel is known as the startup nation with the highest number of startups per capita. In 2023, despite economic challenges, private funding in Israeli tech reached nearly $10 billion, with $7.9 billion in disclosed funding, showing stability despite fewer rounds. Amid political tensions, the war against Hamas and Hezbollah, and global economic contraction, Israel's startup ecosystem faces challenges. However, Israeli tech companies continue to display agility and creativity, with some thriving, despite setbacks. In times of crisis, the venture capital market often seizes investment opportunities, and various sectors in Israel's startup scene are growing. Joining us today to help us understand where the savvy investor should be focusing on is Mor Assia, founding partner of iAngels, experts and leaders in the private startup investment sector. Mor, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so I want to ask you, how has the post-October 7th war affected the startup ecosystem in Israel? And what are some of the challenges that the ecosystem faces today?
Well, it's a great question. First, we have to remember that there are actually a lot of very significant and interesting deals happening since October. Wiz raised $1 billion, a $12 billion valuation, before declining an acquisition offer of $23 billion. NVIDIA acquired 2 companies amounting to approximately $1 billion. Palo Alto Networks did the same, also acquired 2 companies that amounting also to approximately $1 billion. iAngels portfolio companies alone since October have raised in the aggregate of over $100 million. So there are actually interesting activities happening, and all these deals were negotiated and executed after the beginning of the war, which is, very optimistic and positive. And with that said, I think that there are a lot of opportunities for local investors, because a lot of international VCs or global CVCs have pulled out their teams from Israel because of security reasons. And I think that VCs such as iAngels and VCs who have actually dry powder and are actively looking for opportunities and investments have a real proprietary access to very unique investment opportunities at attractive terms.
So, a crisis is often a time of opportunity for, a savvy investor. Are impact investment opportunities attractive still in the current climate?
Well, I think, again, because Israel today, what we're experiencing now, or the cycle that we're experiencing now of the war, is not something that just started now. It started with a downward economic cycle. So we're actually seeing a continuation of a couple of years of actually terms that are coming down to valuations that we saw maybe 10 years ago, which what I think we would call maybe normal valuations these days. So you would see much more advanced companies, much better traction, meaning that some of them can already have product market fit and revenues that are raising at seed valuations, or, for example, companies that are experiencing more difficulty to raise in light of the fact that there are just less investors or perhaps less funds going around, and they're having to raise at down rounds or recapitalization of the companies. But those are actually sometimes very attractive value propositions. Sometimes the best opportunities and the best performance comes from investing in those down rounds. So I think absolutely.
So, iAngels has over 26 exits under its belt and has onboarded over 100 portfolio companies. You partner with some of the highest caliber entrepreneurs in the nation. What are you seeing today as sort of the most exciting sectors for investment?
So I think these days, again, we have to remember that Israelis, we always innovate for other markets. So the market is never here. We're always looking to solve big world problems not in Israel. So we're less dependent actually on Israel's economy to build the startup from the ground up. We're more looking outward to onboard new customers. So I think these days, more than ever before, we're looking to invest in companies that have the opportunity to scale fast and be very heavily dependent on software solutions, so they can actually capitalize on what Israelis do best, which is software, cyber, enterprise software, digital health. These are some of the sectors that we're most interested in, and we're seeing a kind of an awakening also in additional sectors that I think are very in line with being kind of in the midst of a war or post-war. There's a lot of innovation cycles that actually happen after that. And I think we're going to see a lot more, specifically in defense, in cyber, and these are going to be, again, opportunities for Israeli entrepreneurs to kind of, lead the way and be the front runners globally.
And what about AI? It's definitely sort of the buzzword that's making headlines across the globe, from cybersecurity companies, biotech, as you mentioned. Is this an arena that investors should embrace or should perhaps be wary of?
The short answer is absolutely embrace. I think if you're looking, 2-3 years back, this used to be a buzzwords that if I, as an investor, saw in the first image of the deck, I'm like, okay, like these guys again. But today, AI is really a fundamental layer in everything. It could be in code development, in design. It could be in customer success processes, in sales processes, in structuring huge amounts of data. So essentially making organizations much more efficient and making them able to scale very, very fast. So today it's kind of my expectation that there's going to be, harnessing of those AI solutions, AI models to help startups just be able to build their products much faster and grow much faster and scale globally. So absolutely yes. With that said, again, I think people are always weary or afraid. I think that the way that we look at it at iAngels is that as investors, we're looking to support entrepreneurs that are using AI, but we want to make sure that it's being done responsibly, that it's being done transparently in a way that's very fair and supports scale, as I've mentioned. And I think that's kind of part of where we are looking to, support and back the best entrepreneurs that are pushing the envelopes of what's possible, looking to really change big world problems in a way that's much more scalable and much more efficient.
And you mentioned that, Israelis are trying to sort of fix the global problems. Has the war harmed Israel's ability to do that, to penetrate world markets, from a technology or high-tech perspective?
So it's a good question. I mean, it's amongst all of our portfolio companies, we have not experienced any kind of lack or loss of business because we're Israelis or because of the war. And we have actually heard many times on the contrary, huge amounts of support. We feel you, we know you, we've been in this process, we've been in business for so many years. This is really terrible and we're here to help. I think what we're seeing is kind of an awakening of sort. We see a lot of our investors call themselves October 8th Jews, which means that they're not going to be the same after that date, and they want to get more involved and more engaged. They want their children to learn more about Israel. They want to help in any way possible. And for us, a great way to kind of capture that awakening is really a call for people to invest. People might not realize, but investing in Israeli tech is really supporting all the sector of Israel, because Israeli tech generates over 30% of the tax revenue in Israel. And those taxes go directly into health, infrastructure, education, defense. So essentially, it's not just being an altruistic investment, but being something that has kind of opportunity for outsized performance as well, with the notion of how can we get more involved, how can we help Israel, how can we not only support the economy, but build something for the future and support Israel's strong day after. I think what we've been seeing in the last year, which is really unbelievable that it's almost a year, is that high tech in Israel always delivers. We always deliver. We're meeting KPI, although many of the companies might have up to 30% of their workforce called to reserve duty or be elsewhere or be in a kind of different distress situations. So I think this is definitely a sign of hope and a sign of very good future for the high-tech ecosystem that will continue to push forward and make sure that Israel's economy stays strong.
Absolutely. Mo, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.